right, on the Next Up Bodybuilding podcast, we have my good friend Sid. But today we're going to interview this one guy. His name's Ty Jordan. It's his stage name. Ty, welcome to the show.
Hey, Dave, Sid, what's up, guys? Thanks for having me.
Man, it's a pleasure. Thanks for jumping on. And Sid, I know you were busy making money, so thanks for joining as well.
Happy to be here, man.
Yeah.
Good chatting with you guys always.
Pleasure. Now, Ty, like I mentioned earlier, always like a little context. Where are you from? Like, what's your day job? What are you doing?
So I am based out of Kansas City, Missouri. Live on both sides of the state line. I work a couple of different jobs. Like a lot of bodybuilders, we have multiple income streams. The day job for me, or I guess you could say night job, I overnight manage a boutique hotel. Unfortunately, the luxury industries did get hit pretty hard by COVID, as you guys could guess. So still laid off there, but still employed. And I also work as a personal trainer, and I've got a pretty nice setup in that there's a luxury gym in the basement of the loft space that I live in. So taking my clients just downstairs, 3 to 5 times a day, and that's paying the bills best it can during this pandemic.
Yeah, you gotta be creative, and I like the multiple sources of income.
Can't do it without it.
Yeah,
That's kind of a blessing in disguise, isn't it? Getting laid off from the overnight job right now during prep, not having to.
I mean, I would say COVID has been a blessing in disguise for me. I was telling my fiance Ariana when the whole thing broke out, it's unfortunate, but some people are going to win and some people are going to lose. And, I realize it's not in a lot of people's hands. Fortunately, not everyone can get into a gym. Not everyone has like the contacts to be able to work through the pandemic. But I've really been blessed.
Okay. I lost a little bit of that in. But I agree with you. Kind of the general sentiment is like, we can control the things we can control. Some people are going to win, some people are going to lose. I think at the end of the day, you just got to be creative and be on your feet and innovative, right? What's that next source of income? Right. How are you going to fit your meals in? How are you going to make it into the gym?
Yeah, and I think being a bodybuilder, it really forces you to be a good problem solver, because I think a lot of us, we realize there's something wrong with our program, our training, our supplementation, our diet, our digestion. We all start troubleshooting and problem solving immediately. And, it was no different when COVID broke out. The second I realized that a lot of the commercial and the public gyms were going to close down, and, it was going to be difficult to get my usual groceries and things like that. You just start problem solving, and it didn't take me long to get a good situation figured out.
Good shit. Yeah. When COVID hit, I immediately rolled down to Texas. I was like, I'm out. I know there's a couple gyms I can sneak into. Yeah, so I'm in Indianapolis.
Okay.
Yeah, but I'm originally from outside of Dallas, and I spent some time in Phoenix and Tacoma, Washington.
Okay.
Yeah. So being in Kansas, does that make you a Mahomes fan?
It absolutely does. So yeah, I am on the Missouri side. I was born in Kansas, but absolutely a longtime Chiefs fan. I've been a season ticket holder for the majority of my life, and yeah, man, finally some good things coming to Kansas City. We had the Royals win the World Series back in I think 15. They made a couple of trips there, and then obviously Mahomes brought home the ship. So good things going in the Kansas City area.
Yeah, man, that's awesome. That's awesome.
What are the gyms there? Are the gyms pretty decent in the bodybuilding scene?
Be surprised. Kansas City's actually got a great bodybuilding atmosphere. Not a lot of big names coming out of the area in the past, but on my keychain right now, I hold memberships to 3 separate gyms that I would classify as bodybuilding centric gyms. So again, I feel really blessed. I can just kind of decide, depending on what body part I'm training, which one suits me, and all of them have just about everything you could possibly need to succeed.
Really?
Yeah, let me go ahead and just name those for anybody that's listening. The first one I want to mention, Flex Fitness, actually owned by Jason May. He took 5th at Super Heavyweight Nationals last year down in Miami. Another one, Olympic Gym KC. That one's been in town for, I believe, 15 or 20 years. And then a third one started by another top competitor that you guys might know of, Matt Carstetter. He opened a gym here in town called The Foundation. So shout out to all 3 of those gyms. And again, lucky to be able to train in such a good environment.
Yeah, nice. And what made you choose bodybuilding? Like, out of all things in the world you could have done in your spare time.
Oh, that's funny. So I just turned 30, born in 1990. Grew up pretty stereotypical upbringing. You know, WWE, WWF, Stallone, Schwarzenegger, Van Damme. I mean, there's really no surprise that I ended up being a bodybuilder with influences like that. But you know, before I found bodybuilding, I actually was a competitive strongman. So, you know, when I say that, people know what I'm talking about, but I'm sure you guys do. But yeah, I believe when I was like 14 or 15, you know, I was really taking an interest in bodybuilding, but I want to say I came across an article written by Ron Harris, and he was going over what constituted good bodybuilding genetics. And after I went down the list, I was like, fuck, not really cut out. You know, granted, you know, when you're 15 years old and you're skinny, you don't really know what your shape looks like or what your potential is. But you know, at that time that my hips were wide, my shoulders were narrow, and I was chubby. So I'm like, probably not going to go too far in bodybuilding. But at the end of that article by Ron Harris, he did mention there was an outlet for people who maybe weren't built with the best genetics. So very quickly, I found myself competing in strength athletics. I did powerlifting first. Then I realized that a lot of my athletic prowess that was serving me well as a football player kind of lent itself to the strongman. So I started doing strongman competitions. Found out I was pretty good at it pretty fast, and started jumping into national shows before I was even 19 years old.
Damn.
Like
so,
a Kevin Nee.
What's that, Sid?
Like another Kevin Nee. You remember him?
It's funny you say that, man. So I can still remember as a teen watching the MTV. I think it was True Life, and they had titled it "America's Strongest Teen." And I thought that was the coolest fucking moniker ever. And I thought Kevin Nee was the shit. And I said, you know what? I want to win that someday. And I wasn't sure if I was going to mention this, but I actually did win that. So I think Kevin Nee might have won it in 06 or 07. My first year doing strongman was 2008. I had done my first contest, I want to say maybe a week or two after graduating high school. Never even messed around with the implements, wound up taking second. And the promoter was like, hey, man, you ought to take a run at the Teenage Nationals in Chicago in a couple of weeks. So a couple of buddies of mine hopped in the car, went up to Chicago, and I had a decent showing. I think there were 16 competitors there. I placed 8th, but I walked away with a lot of motivation, a pretty funny story to tell you guys about that. So going into the final event, it's typically an Atlas Stones event. You guys familiar with that?
The big round balls, concrete balls.
Yeah, so they usually range anywhere from like 200 to 400 pounds. And a lot of times you'll lift them in like a stone series, like lightest to heaviest. So I'm blazing a trail. I'm on the 4th or 5th stone. I'm going to set a pretty good time. And man, somehow, some way, I sharded. Yeah. And so if you've ever done that, your immediate thought is like, fuck, like how bad is it? You know, is it like running down my leg, or is it just like a small stain? What's the fucking situation? Keep in mind, I'm still in the middle of an event, and you know, there's valuable placings on the line. I imagine if I loaded them all in a good time, I might have found my way into like 4th or 5th. But I'm still in the middle of the event, so I'm trying to figure my way through it, trying to lift an Atlas Stone with my butt clenched because I don't know what the situation is.
Oh my god.
Yeah. Anyways, it doesn't go well. I don't get the stone. When you do these Atlas Stones, you have to put on, they call it tacky, but it's basically like tree sap. It takes like 10 minutes to put on and like 2 hours to take off. And it was an absolute shit show trying to get all this stuff off while assessing the situation that happened on the stone loading. And it was a really weird experience, but I walked out of that so motivated to come back and put everything I had into the opportunity to try to win that title. So, you know, I went home, I got on my grind, I started taking things a lot more seriously. I found a good crew to practice the events and the implements with. And I told myself right then and there, I was going to win that contest a year from now. So Fast forward to 2009, and they held it that year in Lowell, Massachusetts. It's a little suburb outside of Boston. And I went on there and I clean sweep the show. There were 6 events. I won 5 of the 6. The one event I didn't win, I took second. So I think I earned 59 of 60 possible points and pretty much won the show in as good a style as you can win it. So 2009, teenage heavyweight national champion, you're looking at him.
Damn.
And it's interesting that I'm preparing for this opportunity to go into the North Americans, because strongman and bodybuilding are very similar in that to earn that professional status, you have to take first place at a pro qualifier. So shortly after winning that teenage national championship, I found myself in Lafayette, Louisiana, competing at the NAS Men's Nationals. And I took 5th there, my first time out. I was actually tied for first 2 events in. The unfortunate thing about strongman is sometimes you're subject to the conditions that are out of your control. And in strongman, if you're in the lead, you typically will go last on an event, which is a great advantage. But unfortunately, an event that I was getting ready to do, it started raining and it changed the surface and the grip circumstances. Totally shit on my day. And anyways, I ended up taking 5th, didn't get the pro card, made a couple more runs at strongman, but it just got more and more competitive. And I found that I wasn't really built the way that a lot of the other guys were built in terms of the thick joints and the really big waist and just the ability to hold size. And I also kind of started to notice that, you know, as I started showing up at these shows, a lot of these guys were calling me the pretty boy and, you know, the aesthetic guy and stuff. So I'm like, oh, well, shit. Like, maybe like strongman's not the thing for me, but maybe I could do some bodybuilding. So, you know, I said goodbye to strongman after 3 runs at the national level. And, you know, again, I felt like I was just continually getting hurt. And some of the guys that I'd been beating in years prior were, you know, just running laps around me at that point. And so I just felt like it was time to make a move. It didn't seem like I was going to be able to do strongman for the long term. Just wasn't cut out for it. So in 2013, I made a transition and I decided I would try my hand at bodybuilding. I found a local coach and set up a game plan, and we decided to attack one of the premier natural shows here in the area. And I ended up coming to that show 6 foot, I think 197 pounds, and I took 4th in the tall class. So, and you know, it was a great experience. I'm actually really glad I did that naturally, because I told myself, if I can get through a contest prep without any super sub assistance and just do it the hard way, you know, I can do this long term. And as soon as I came out of that show, I knew that looking at my photos, I think I can be good at this, but there's nobody competing in the IFBB that's 6 foot, 196 pounds. So probably need to take a few years off and accrue a little bit of mass so I can be competitive. So took 2013 through 2016 off and just stayed in the gym, and jumped into the NPC officially in 2016.
Wow. Sid, when you hear that?
Most people don't have the dedication to take that long off the stage, you know?
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, I'm pretty objective, and, you know, I was looking around at the stats and stuff, and again, you know, it sounded like for the most part, if you're going to be a 6 foot bodybuilder, which as I understood it, that's pretty damn tall, you know, you need to get the top end, you know, you need to be 240, 250, maybe even 260. So I just didn't want to get up there and show something that I felt like was so far away from what my ultimate potential might ought to be. So it was really a pretty easy decision to take that time. And, you know, I know a lot of people, this sport is a means to an end, but for me, I just love the journey, you know, obviously with the background in strongman and competitive weightlifting. I just love the day in, day out grind. So if you're going to tell me it takes 3 years, 5 years, 10 years, so long as I'm having fun doing what I'm doing, I'm all right with that.
Gotcha. What did you learn in that time about yourself? Like your body, like training philosophy, diet philosophy, has that changed? I mean, 3 years, and now that was 2016 at the end of that, and now it's 2020.
So I think I went through a lot of the same progressions that a lot of bodybuilders go through as they work their way through kind of the beginner to novice to intermediate experience. And, you know, when you first jump into the gym, you know, you get a good idea of what exercises and set and rep schemes, you know, might work. And you feel like you're leaving something out there if you don't just do everything. So like a lot of movements, I trained very, very high volume. You know, there wasn't an exercise that went untouched. And you know, I think what too is us beginners, we need a lot of that volume and a lot of that time in the gym because we're not able to apply the necessary intensity and the quality time and attention that it takes to really build and accrue muscle. And like a lot of people, I think as you get better and better and more adept at this bodybuilding experience, you're able to slowly kind of scale a lot of that back. And so now I find myself, you know, kind of in the progressive overload, high intensity, lower volume boat. And, you know, that's not to be like a Jordan Peters dick rider or anything like that. It's just, that's what I've come to find works for me. I've gotten better and better at, you know, tapping into what works for my body. And, you know, I find that I just don't need endless amounts of volume to get the job done.
Now that you're heavily focused on progressive overload, how does your strength compare as a bodybuilder to at your peak?
Oh, it's crazy, man. You know, I wish I could actually go backwards and apply a lot of the strength that I have now towards some of those strongman disciplines because, you know, I felt like a lot of the strength that I had as a competitive strongman was dynamic and functional. And I really didn't have a lot of the limit strength and the static strength that a lot of my fellow competitors had. So it would be pretty typical for me in a strongman meet to come out behind the pack after the first two events, which were usually static strength. And then I would make up a lot of ground once we started doing moving events and functional events and loading events, you know, tire flips, Atlas stones, things like that. But in kind of adopting the progressive overload scheme, you know, my limit strength and my static strength has come up tremendously. And I wouldn't really consider myself much of a dynamic lifter anymore. So yeah, man, it'd be a lot of fun to go back and see what some of that strength I have now could have done then. Because I was always a good puller. I was a 700-pound deadlifter by the time I was 19. But that was really it as far as static strength went. So yeah, it'd be a lot of fun to go back and do it over. But it is what it is.
You're really strong now.
That's a lot of weight.
I don't know if you've seen, but Ty has something like a 585 for 10 back squat. You do.
That, man. Yeah. So I'm not much of a presser, but I'm a pretty big squatter, pretty big deadlifter. Yeah, I think that was maybe my fourth or fifth time even putting 585 on my back. And yeah, I dunked it for 10 this off season. I want to say it was back in January. So yeah, it was one of my best all-time lifts, and to this day, really damn proud of that one.
That's a lot of weight. That's all I have to say. Men's physique guy over here. That's a lot of weight.
Yeah, but you know, I feel like not even in the club anymore if you're not inclining like 405 per reps, and I'll probably never even do that once in my life. So
yeah,
I find a different game.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. The past year or two, strength has just exploded in the bodybuilding community.
Yeah,
like,
you know, and you know, you kind of saw some of that progression happening in like strength sports, but it really hasn't made any sense how it's jumped off like so quickly in bodybuilding. I mean, you know, I feel like just 3 or 4 years ago, you'd watch someone do a set of barbell rows with 405 and your jaw might hit the floor. You'd see someone in 455 and you'd be like, what the fuck? And now, I mean, I can think of like 5 or 10 amateurs who are all doing that stuff like week in, week out. You know, the game has changed.
It sucks. It makes it so I can't post hardly any of my videos on YouTube.
Yes.
Hey, but you know what? I realized pretty quickly that you know, not everybody can have kind of the Instagram persona or whatever that, you know, like a James Hollingshead or a Luke Sandow or you know, a Dallas McCarver could have. You know, I posted that 585 squat for 10, and you know, I still got next to no attention. So I'm probably not going to have a very long career trying to impress people on Instagram with my lifts. So I should probably start tailoring my training towards what's going to make me the best bodybuilder long term. And I think that's going to be a better strategy. So I don't know if you guys are going to ever see me hit that 585 squat for 10 again. I actually recall tweaking my left quad on the final rep of that set, and quads are one of my best body parts, so don't think I need to put them under that kind of risk going forward if I want to have a long-term career here.
I'd agree. Man, that's awesome. What else?
So what else?
Yeah, the risk reward stuff with the heavy lifting, it's crazy, like there's definitely a lot of benefit from that kind of training, but once you tear a body part, as you know, Ty, like it'll hold you back for a while.
Yeah. So you guys all know I have been a victim of a pec tear, so that does weigh on my mind constantly. And I've got a ton of respect for a lot of the guys out here that kind of preach the mantra of trying to maintain as much strength as possible as they get deep into their prep, and some guys even get stronger, which is cool. But myself, I hit an off-season weight of 297 in the morning. I think I went to bed a couple of nights at 302. And I'm waking up right now right around 249, 250, going to bed 255. So I think it'd be pretty fucking crazy to expect for me to be putting the same 585 on the bar or whatever I was pressing, 50 pounds less body weight to back me up. And, I just find that in knowing my body, once I start getting lean, dry, certain compounds come out, other compounds come in, I feel like I'm very, very injury prone. And, that's just something about me that I've got to work around. But I've never had any trouble maintaining my tissue through the deeper stages of the diet. So, again, I think you've got to run your own race and do what works for you. And, if some of these guys want to keep incline pressing 500 pounds into the show, like, more power to them. But that's just not the game plan for me. And I'm comfortable with that.
Now, do you cut your weight down as you get closer to a show date, or do you pull like a Dexter Jackson and transition more to machines?
So I to stick with a lot of the movement patterns and the exercises that helped me do what I did in the off season. So I don't make a big transition in what I'm doing in the gym. I will get the barbell out of my hands a little bit more as I get closer to the show. But there's no major overhaul with the training. It's more just the mindset in that I don't feel like every one of my top sets needs to go all the way to the brink. I don't need that one more rep every time. I like to leave a couple of reps in reserve, especially on the exercises that I feel like, run a little bit more risk of injury. Obviously, plate things, fixed movement patterns. Those are the things where it's still safe to take it all the way to the brink. But for instance, just yesterday, I think I had 7 plates per side on a Cybex hack squat. I hit 5 reps with it. Could I have done 6 or 7? Maybe. But, in looking at my progress pics yesterday, my quads look pretty fucking sick. And I don't really have 6 or 7 reps. So I called it at 5, and I feel pretty good about it. And can't tell me otherwise.
I love the confidence.
Thank you, man.
I love the confidence. We'll get to what show you got going on next, but what shows have you done in the past in the NPC that you're pretty proud of? And what was your feedback? What did the judges say?
So I compete here in the Columbus, Missouri area. So the two, I guess, promoter or groups of promoters, if you will, here locally are Chad Nichols and his wife. They do the Mayhem production. And then we've got Jack and Ann Tony, so they do the NPC Midwest productions. I started off doing Chad and Kim's shows. First time out, I did their, I want to say it was the Midwest Championships. I might be getting the name wrong. They held it in Wichita every year. Won the Supers there. Lost for the overall. 2017, did that same song and dance again, won the Supers, lost close overall. And unfortunately, that's kind of the thing with me. Weight class wins, and each time I find myself running into a tough battle with a heavyweight class winner that just gets the better of me with condition. Last year at St. Louis, I ran in the Scott Holiday. I think he ended up taking 3rd at USA's in the heavyweight class. We had a good little duel. So yeah, it's unfortunate I've not been able to get over that overall hump, but I think I've shown a lot of potential in coming into these shows, and ultimately it's just been a matter of not being able to really get it right that final 3 to 4 weeks. And I'm sure we'll get to it here in a couple minutes, but I'm pretty confident that this prep's going to be the one where I finally show the collective bodybuilding community what I'm really capable of.
Gotcha. So, like, have you been to a national level show yet? We talked about these local shows.
Yeah, you bet. So last year I did NPC Junior USA's, and unfortunately for me, there was only 2 contestants in the super heavyweight class, myself and Ty Woosley. And coincidentally, I had actually defeated Ty Woosley at a show about a month and a half prior. So it was really just a run back of that same show. Ty to improve. I managed to come in a little bit worse. And so he went ahead and took the NPC Junior USA crown, and I was left with 2nd place. So looking forward to getting back on the national stage this year for sure. I made the decision to do the Junior USA's last year, understanding obviously you don't get a pro card, but with the advent of all the new classes here in our sport, it's getting harder and harder to find legitimate competition at the local and the regional level as an open class bodybuilder, even more so as an open super, where 227 pounds and above, not a lot of the gym around with that kind of size. So I felt like I needed to at least go to the junior level to find competition to see where I stacked up at. But again, just one other guy to compete with. So pretty much told myself, if I actually want to go to a show and learn something about myself and fight for a first call out, it's going to have to be a national level show. So that was the plan as soon as last year wrapped up.
Okay, I like it. So what's been going on these last 3 weeks, 4 weeks coming into a show? You said haven't gotten the overall due to conditioning, and you haven't been able to dial it in.
So in the past, let's see, Sid probably knows this, but I worked with another fellow who's getting ready to come in and make a lot of noise here at North Americans, Nate Spear. Nate's a good friend of mine. I think we had a lot of success together, and I'm very, very appreciative of Nate for taking me on when he did and helping me make a lot of strides with my physique. But, ultimately, the package that I would bring into these shows simply just didn't reflect the amount of effort and work that both Nate and I put into the preps. And so it was just a simple decision of needing to find someone that was more adept and capable of bringing my body in the way it needs to. And so I was able to get together with Boston Lloyd coming out of Junior USA's last year. And it's been nothing but success ever since we started working together. We jumped straight into a rebound and then right into off season. And I'm having the best prep of my life right now. 7 weeks out of the North Americans. Normally in this condition, it's taken an hour and a half of cardio a day, and pretty rough dieting to look the way that I do. And right now, doing 15 minutes a day. Fat burners. So just 15 minutes a day. We weren't even using any Sims or fat burners for a little while, but we just sprinkled a few of them back into the mix. So
nice.
I feel like we got a lot of different avenues and directions we could go, and the last thing my body is tired. I feel very fresh. I'm hungry.
Good.
Physically, I'm really ready for it. So I think you guys are going to see my very, very best here in 7 weeks.
Awesome. Now, Sid, what have you seen from Ty in the past?
What do you think Boston's done differently this year to bring about that change?
Yeah, so when I first had a few, let me actually wind this back, because I get this question how did you end up with Boston Lloyd? I think I even just answered the DM 2 days ago. So let's roll it back to that contest I mentioned, the NPC Midwest. I want to say it was last April. So I won that show, albeit in pretty controversial fashion. It's no secret that Ty Woosley was absolutely peeled out of his mind at that show, and I wasn't, but my shape was okay, my structure was okay, and I got the nod. So a couple days later, I hop on Instagram, and I see that I am the subject of a Boston Lloyd post. I always joke like, wow, things must be going well for me if I ever find myself on the wrong end of that one. But so Boston made a post kind of analyzing the results of that show, and he didn't really troll me or bash me the way that he's done with some other people, but he kind of just put the results out there and said, speak amongst yourselves, people. What do you see from this? And the overwhelming response was Ty Woosley probably should have taken that show, but in the background of all the conversation that was going on with that post, I was actually in conversation with Boston, and he was letting me know, hey, don't take this the wrong way, no hard feelings. I actually think the world of your potential, and I think if you would have done this, this, and that, coming into this show, I think you would have looked really damn good. And that really kind of stuck in my mind as I started thinking about some of the things that weren't really working for Nate and I in terms of the way we were approaching dieting, cardiovascular, refeeds, things like that. And believe it or not, actually, after the NPC Junior USA's wrapped up, it was actually Nate who brought it to my attention that it would be in my best interest to look for alternative coaching because, I think Nate's just a good guy and he just wanted to see me reach my potential. And, we tried 2 or 3 times and we've just been unable to really peak my body. And so, once Nate let me go, I'm thinking, I've kind of already been down the avenue, obviously, of working with a lesser experienced coach that, has more time and availability for me. I've also been down the unfortunate avenue of working with a really, really big name that paid absolutely no attention to me. If you guys want that story, I have it for you. If not,
I do want to hear that story. I love these stories.
Let's get into that story.
Okay. So, and again, I want to say a huge thanks to Nate too, because Nate's always been there for me when other things in my life haven't worked out. And in this instance, Nate helped pick me back up and take me into a show after I had a really unfortunate experience working with Milos Sarcev. So Milos, a good guy, had the chance to actually go meet him in person and train with him, and one of the best experiences of my life. But Milos is human like everybody else, and there's a lot of coaches out there that take on more than they can chew. And so I reached out to Milos. He was very cordial, and I was really excited about working with him. And very quickly, I was locked into a year with Milos, and unfortunately, shortly after that, the communication pretty much completely ceased. I was really looking forward to having a very, back and forth intuitive relationship with him. But instead, I actually got what I think was 16 to 20 weeks of a plan sent to me right out of the gates. And if anyone's familiar with Milos, his plans are very, very difficult to work with in that, the nutrition can change like day by day. He likes to train twice a day. And it was a very difficult program to try to employ without having Milos as a resource to talk to day in, day out. And fortunately, he didn't seem too interested in my actual progress, in that he didn't request check-ins. He didn't really respond when I sent them anyways. And after the 16 weeks of the program played itself out, I'm like, well, I did the 16 weeks. I guess it's time for you to send me another one. And it took him like 3 weeks to send me another 16-week program. And this program actually led all the way into a show. And, it had all the specifics for what we were going to do, even 3 weeks out. And I'm thinking, I know I'm not a high-level experienced competitor, but I'm pretty sure the top coaches in the sport aren't doing this stuff in advance. They're taking it week by week, in a lot of cases, hour by hour. And I just felt like, I think I'm getting a raw deal here, and I don't think I'm getting the same level of service that he's probably giving to guys like Hidetada and stuff. So I went ahead and just walked away from that 5 months into it, all the while knowing that I've already paid him a year in advance. And again, Nate was there to pick me right back up, and I can't thank him enough for that, because Lord knows I didn't have another $4,000 to spend on another high-profile coach. So again, couldn't be where I am without Nate, and I'm gracious that he actually was the one to suggest to me, I want you to find better coaching so you can actually live up to your potential.
Yeah, Dave, I don't know how familiar you are with the big-time bodybuilding coaches, but Milos is extremely expensive. Chad Nichols is 5K for a year. Chris Aceto's 5K for a year. But it's funny you say that he gave you all this plan like well in advance.
Yeah.
Obviously, that's not the correct way to do things, right? Because the
Right.
cheap is week to week, you know.
Yeah.
But I've actually seen a plan from Chad Nichols that was like 8 or 12 weeks of plotted out like changes. So
it's crazy because I mean,
That's crazy.
it's one thing if you know the athlete you're working with and you're lockstep, you can almost like predict what the body does based off of past experience. But you know, for the life of me, I couldn't figure out how you could give a program to a newbie for 16 to 20 week duration when you know next to nothing about their metabolism, response to certain products, you know, response to training. It was just a bad experience for me, just all across the board. You know, I found that I don't really take very well to insulin protocols and things like that. I don't take well to twice a day training, the giant sets and all that stuff. It was just misdirection for me in the worst sense, absolute misdirection. So,
well, what did you learn from that experience?
What's that?
What did you learn from that experience? Because there's always like something you got to take away from it, right?
Yeah, so I think
like how shitty it was.
The overriding theme from that experience, it has less to do with bodybuilding. It has more to do with just being an intelligent shopper and understanding that you know, when you make a high involvement purchase like that, especially in the service industry, the likelihood of getting quality service for the entire duration when you pay someone in advance is not very good compared to the idea of paying them a premium rate on a month-to-month basis. So I definitely won't be making that kind of mistake again, even if it's in a different avenue other than bodybuilding. So I'd say that was a pretty valuable lesson to learn. Don't just go drop 4K on a service for 12 months in advance and expect that person to honor what they're selling for the entirety of it.
That's fucking crazy.
Yeah,
these guys are wild out there.
I know paying up front is a good way to demonstrate that you're committed, you know?
Yeah.
But it also puts you at risk of getting fucked.
Right. Understand too. That was a huge part of it. It was understanding that someone like Milos probably has a lot of high profile clients already and hoping that I can show him how badly I want this and I really want to stand out and I'm dedicated to the process. You know, that's really the only thing you can do up front is just show your level of dedication by putting that money forth, you know, because I understand coaches not wanting to take on a ton of people on a month by month basis either, you know, with the fear of investing a lot of time and thought and energy into someone only to see them drop out after 1 month. I can totally understand that perspective as well. But yeah, all in all, it just didn't work out for me.
But Boston's got you covered as we go into North America.
Yeah, so Boston,
7 weeks.
You know, he gave me what was a really affordable rate, you know, at a time when I really didn't have the finances to afford another top name coach and was also not in position to roll the dice on another coach that, you know, again, might have a lot of time and care for my process, but might not have that necessary expertise to really dial me in when it matters the most, you know, things like the last couple of weeks. Because
what is Boston like?
I have a pretty tricky body, and they can definitely attest to that. What's Boston like?
Because he's got a lot of controversy. Several years ago, surrounding that guy, right?
And you know, when I think about when I was evaluating my my options last year, and I was thinking about working with Boston, I realized that it was going to be a pretty polarizing decision in that linking up with Boston was going to open the door for a lot of people to make assumptions that I'm taking my performance enhancement usage to another level, or that maybe I was going to start experimenting with, you know, synthol or things like that. And those were all things that I had to think about because in a lot of instances, perception can be reality. But, you know, when I weighed everything out and, you know, considered the fact that he genuinely wanted to help me, he had the knowledge base that I knew was going to be able to get me to the next level. He offered a price that was very, very fair and very competitive. And again, he outlined some of the things that he felt I wasn't doing that were going to immediately make an impact on my physique. And it was really just an easy decision for me. You know, I mean, I was looking at turning 30 years old and you can't do this forever. I've already given the sport everything I've got. So I can't make a decision based on what other people might think about me. I had to make the best decision for me in the moment, and best decision I've made as a bodybuilder today.
Damn.
Yeah, I stand by that 100%. A lot of people just assume, again, based off of podcasts or interviews you watch with him, that what Boston says is what Boston says and does is what Boston, employs on his clientele, and couldn't be further from the truth. I haven't seen other protocols from other clients of his, but it's my understanding that Boston pretty much coaches people a lot like Palumbo does. From my experience listening to Palumbo talk about his diet and prep mythologies, I feel like I'm running a very similar course to that. We diet on pretty low carbs. The hormone use, I feel like it's really pretty much in line with what you're going to hear from Dave Palumbo and things like that. Not a lot of the crazy stuff that Boston experiments with on himself. And it's really pretty old school, dry bodybuilding. And, if you talk to Boston, one of the main reasons that you don't see him coaching, 10, 20, 30, 40 guys nowadays is because he likes old school bodybuilders who are just down to suffer, grind, do what's necessary to get in shape. And, he's not into a lot of the, I guess you could say, mythologies out there where people are looking to just avoid working hard and just doing things the old school way to get the job done. So, yeah.
I like it. And tell us, you're pretty excited for North Americans. You think this is going to be something different, right? I mean, you wouldn't put all this money and effort.
Yeah. I realize, I'm not one of the ones to watch based on past contest placings or past pro qualifier results and things like that. But Boston and I are very confident we're going to be right there in the mix for the whole thing. So we're really looking forward to it.
All right. This brings me to one of my last questions. What makes you next up? Why you, Ty?
I like that question. So let's go ahead and look at last year's USAs, if you will. And I want to kind of take a look at Zach Merkel, who good friend of mine, but I see some physique parallels that I'm trying to kind of exploit as I come into North American. So I feel like Zach succeeded in having a great structure in terms of being 6 foot and having a big frame, had a really nice silhouette. He brought some big, round, billowing quads with nice separation to the show. He brought a good amount of balance, good flow, good polish. Maybe he wasn't the hardest guy on stage, but, I think he showed a lot of potential to be able to get harder and really dialed in for the future. And I feel like I'm going to be able to do a lot of those same things coming into the show. I'm a 6-footer. I think my structure's all right. I think I've got a pretty small waist, got really round, big shoulders, nice quads, good sweep, good lines on the quads. And, I think based on the direction of the sport and what we've seen, not only at the Olympia level, but, cascading on down through the amateur ranks and such, I think guys that flow well and have good shape and good lines they're dangerous right now, so I expect to be dangerous, assuming that the condition is there. And yeah, I'm very confident in what I bring to the table. I think I've got some good round shape. If you look at a lot of the posts and things I have, you hear names like Lavroni and Phil Heath and things like that, in terms of, the shoulders and the arms that I bring. Again, I've got the good legs. So all in all, I think I've got a pretty good package. I've got some showy body parts, small waist, good lines. Got some weaknesses too. We all do. I think my back can come up some. I still think I could use some more density through the chest. I definitely know that my stage presentation and overall polish needs work. And of course, I've not dialed it all the way in yet, but I'm assuming that we're going to get that job done here this time. But yeah, I like my chances going forward. And if it's not this one, Boston. We want to make a run at all in this year, assuming I get a good result at North Americans. I think we'd like to throw our hat in the mix for all the big qualifiers this year.
Okay, good shit. And Sid, other than shredded glutes, what do you want to see from Ty?
So me and Ty, we talk pretty regularly via Instagram. I talk to Boston, his coach, probably every single day. We're buddies, and I've told both of them these things. You know, they're well aware. What Ty's strengths are is his roundness through his arms and his delts, his fantastic quads and just general separation there. He's got decent hamstrings, great hamstring separation. What he's been lacking is just conditioning through the low back, abdominals, glutes, and then his back development, as he mentioned, isn't quite where it needs to be. But the conditioning thing, fixable right away, you know.
Yep.
Provided like he follows the plan, which I'm sure he will. The main thing that he needs to work on, in my opinion, is just presentation, posing. You know, I know Boston has mentioned this to both of us, both to him and to me, that Ty needs to get with the posing coach. And like, that's going to be the biggest thing, you know, because when you get on that national level stage, and if you're showing that you're comfortable and you're coming out there with a big smile and you're hitting your poses with no shaking and you're hitting your poses in the way that best shows off your physique, that's not common. As surprising as it is, it's not super common at the national level. A lot of these guys are hitting their stuff like robots, you know, and they're not hitting the best shots for themselves. And if you can do that, it'll be a really good look for you.
Yeah, and you know, when it comes to presentation, one of the things that I think I need to work on as it pertains to that is probably do less as opposed to do more. You know, I've never been someone who's afraid to be on stage or afraid to have charisma, but you know, sometimes I just simply get too excited. So, you know, there's a lot of waste. You know, I've got these big fucking hands and sometimes they're all over the place. So yeah, for me, I think it's going to come down to just polishing it up, dialing it back a little bit. Trying to do some things that distract you less from what's going on and just get you to focus more on the highlights and the quality of my physique. So, and as we stand, you know, 7 weeks out, it is time to really dial in the posing. I've made overtures to a couple of guys here locally to assist me, you know, once or twice a week, not only with, you know, drilling my mandatories and making sure I'm ready to mix it up for first call, but also, you know, I really would like to bring a well-crafted posing routine to the North Americans. You know, I realize only the top 5 get the opportunity to demonstrate that. And I think that has a lot to do with why you see such garbage posing is I think a lot of guys, you know, in evaluating whether it's worth it to put that time into it when they might not even demonstrate that routine on stage. I think most guys just choose not to do it. And I think that also has a cascading effect on just the quality of overall presentation that we see across the board. And I just think that hurts bodybuilding's image. And so, you know, you hear guys like Sergio say it a lot, but I do want to be a part of the bodybuilding crowd that actually holds a candle to, you know, past Hall of Famers and, you know, reminds people of what bodybuilding really is about in terms of, you know, a true display of, you know, the physique and the artistic nature of it, and not just coming out and, you know, presenting some mandatories, but actually being able to show the sport in an artistic way. And, you know, not everyone's physique is, I guess what I'm trying to say is that not everyone's physique compares the exact same way when you just look at 2 people and all of the mandatories, but, you know, you can really become a fan of someone's physique by watching them display in a non-traditional sense. And I want to have that opportunity to grow my fan base, not just because of the way that I look in a side chest or the way that I look in a front lat spread, but, you know, because of the way that I presented myself artistically speaking, because that's what I think is really going to build, you know, a long-term legacy as a bodybuilder.
I like it. That's badass.
Cool.
Now, Ty, for me, what I want to see you come in for North Americans, obviously, it's shredded glutes. But you're posing, make that shit look easy.
Yes.
Long on stage. And I know you're black and Jewish. Coming dark, bro.
Yeah.
Wesley Snipes dark.
It's funny, man. You know, Sid and I have talked before too about, you know, coming from ethnicities that are are a little more known for intellectual exploits than physical exploits. And, so that's something I definitely keep in mind too. I know Sid thinks about it sometimes. I'm sure it'd be pretty cool for Sid to find himself in 10 years being, an inspiration for a bunch of kids in India and, across the world that share that heritage, that want to have a world-class physique. And yeah, I'd love to be able to do that for the 15 or so Black and Jewish kids.
Probably it's a tough demographic, but it exists.
You and Drake.
Me and Drake, that's right.
Man, I love it. I appreciate you being on, Sid. Thank you. Before we go, Ty, what are your plugs? You got anything you need to plug in?
Man, I can't wait to do this part. So, repping my sponsor, Phase One Nutrition. They picked me up shortly after NPC Junior USA's last year. One of the hottest up-and-coming sports nutrition companies in the sport. They've got some of the strongest pre-workouts out on the market right now. And they also provide a lot of products that are really helping me out as I get deeper into this prep.
Yeah.
A couple of the ones I want to highlight is their product called Function. It's an anti-cortisol product. Anybody that knows me on an intimate level knows that my cortisol gets absolutely wacky as I get closer to these shows. Nate can definitely attest to that as well. I've been running that for about 8 weeks now, and I'm cool as a cucumber, Function right now. We've also got one of the strongest fat burners on the market, one of the few that still comes with the DMHA in the blend. So again, in really good hands with Phase One Nutrition. Also want to highlight Jaguar Suits. They've been providing my trunks for me for the better part of the year now. They've been in the industry, 20, 30 years, been making suits for Mr. Olympias dating back to, Ronnie Coleman, Dorian Yates, and I believe as recently as Sean Roden. So proud to drop Jaguar Suits. Just recently hooked up with a CBD company called Clearly Canna. Really happy about that too. Big fan of the cannabis industry, and also a big fan of CBD and what it can do for the bodybuilder in terms of inflammation control, digestion, proper sleep, and we all get pretty high strung as we get closer to these shows. So having something to take the edge off, I think that helps a lot too. And I guess lastly, I mentioned Jet North. I don't have a discount code with them, but they were cool enough to send me a bunch of free clothes. So Jet North, guys. So yeah, that rounds out the sponsors currently. Accepting applications for more people that want to come on board and support my my bodybuilding motion here. So I'm on Instagram at Ty_Jordan_bodybuilding. If you guys want to message me there with any overtures. I don't have any other platforms just yet, but if you guys are interested in seeing me do a YouTube or something like that, just let me know.
Oh yeah.
But
thank you guys.
I am very active on my my socials though. I do post most of my training every single day, along with my fiance Ariana Garcia. If you guys do head over to that page, you'll see she is 6 weeks out from NPC Junior USA herself. She's taken first call out at a couple of pro qualifiers in the last year, and really confident she's going to grab that pro card well before I do. So yeah, we're hoping to be a big win for both of us, and hopefully we can both call ourselves IFBB pros by the end of 2020.
That's a good plan. I like it.
Yes,
Maybe
sir.
we'll have to get her on the show.
Hey man, we can do a joint one. That'd be a lot of fun.
Yeah. She's got bigger muscles than you, I bet. Her biceps are better.
I'll let her have the angle. We'll see.
Glutes for sure, at least.
Oh yeah, she's got me there.
Well, dope, man. Thank you, gentlemen, for being on today.
Guys, it was a lot of fun.
Talk to you guys soon.